Hi, and welcome to Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. I'm Kathryn. I want to talk about the Orrin and Orson West case again. The police chief, Jon Walker, from California City Police Department, did do a pretty extensive interview this week that was released today. I have some points to make about what he is saying, and I did hesitate because they took the video down at first, but now it's back up for everyone to see. And if you haven't seen it, I will put the link in the notes below so that you can see it there. Welcome to Left Undone. Hi, and welcome back. I want to go through the police chief's interview. I have some questions and comments to make, clearly, because that's what I do. But what I am seeing as this case has evolved is that more and more it's looking like the Wests are not involved and are not guilty of doing anything to their own children. So let's get started with the interview. Before I do, I just want to make a comment about the interview with the woman that works at grocery outlet up in San Jose, California, that said she saw with the babies, the kids in a double stroller on the 21st of December, which would be the day they were reported missing. At this point, I don't hold a lot of stock in that. I've heard other channels go and call the store with confusion comments that really didn't make a lot of sense and saying you need to talk to the owners. Nobody has actually clarified who this employee was. And it sounds like law enforcement isn't taking that one seriously either. In my opinion, the reason why I believe law enforcement isn't taking it seriously is because there's probably camera footage of the Wests at home on that day. So that's all I really have to say about that right now. The first question, are the boys alive? He has no reason to believe they're not alive. He has said that from the beginning. He says he wants to remain optimistic, but he has no evidence in any way at this point to show that those children are not alive.
So I'll get straight to the point. I got some questions from people on Facebook and via Messenger just asking about this investigation on the two boys missing in California City. And I wanted to go through them with you. Some of them, I couldn't include all of them, but here are a few of them. The first question, are the boys alive?
I have no reason to believe they're not at this time. Again, I've said it through this whole thing. I remain absolutely optimistic that they're alive, and I have to believe that unless I find some sort of proof or evidence of that it's different.
So, at this point, they are working on a missing persons investigation, not a recovery or a murder, from what he's saying. She goes on to say, what do you think could have happened to the children? He says, what do I really think? What do I really believe? I really believe there's no way. Now listen to his words carefully. He says, I really believe there's no way they could have gotten out of that neighborhood without the assistance of an adult. He doesn't say out of that yard anymore. He doesn't say out of that house. He says out of that neighborhood. And he says it more than once.
And what might have happened to the boys? What scenarios are possible in this situation?
There's 1,000 different scenarios that, let your imagination run wild. What I do truly believe is that night, there's no way that they could have got out of that the neighborhood without some sort of assistance from an adult. That's my belief.
And then, of course, they go on to say you always start with family first, and we've been over that before, so I'm not going to really elaborate on that. But we know when a woman goes missing, they look at her significant others, people that she's in a relationship with, family members, husbands, children the same way. You're always going to start on the inside and work your way out from family to extended family to neighbors to friends to relatives to all the way out to strangers. So that's what he's saying there.
And so in past situations with missing cases, is that usually the case, that it's someone familiar that is involved in the investigation or something like that?
Um, it's always situationally driven, and I can't point fingers. I mean, we always start from the inside out, of course. The people closest to them, the people who've seen them last, that's who we start with. We always look at family first, especially with kids that young.
So then she says, again, you have said that you suspect foul play. And he again says, if there was an adult or someone that took those kids out of that neighborhood, that would be considered foul play.
And earlier, I know in our first interview in front of the house on Aspen Avenue, you said that you suspected foul play. And do you still think that, and why or why not?
Absolutely. It goes back to I personally believe that there's no way those kids got out of that neighborhood without some sort of assistance. So if there was an adult that assisted them or took them out of the neighborhood, that would constitute foul play.
Then he points out foul play means that someone has taken these children and not divulged to their parents where they are at. Their parents, Jacqueline and Trezell West. Not Ryan Dean, she is not their parent. She gave birth to them, but her rights were taken away. She is no longer legally their parent. So he's not talking about her. He's talking about the Wests.
So exactly, what constitutes foul play? It doesn't necessarily mean abuse. It just it means
Foul play means that someone has taken the children and not divulged to their parents where they're at. That's just, I mean, we'll start basic 101 right there.
And again, he says, this would be foul play because someone that has those children or have taken them out of that neighborhood, the only people that are supposed to be with those children are their parents, and they're not with their parents. So I don't know how much clearer he could say what I've been thinking, what a lot of people have been thinking, that those children were taken from someone when their father turned his back and went in the house. It's been my thought. If you watch all my videos, it's exactly what it looks like from my narrative, from my perspective, and even looking at the small shadow figures that went out the gate. It adds up, in my opinion.
someone else got involved in the
Somehow, someone, absolutely. Again, if I believe that they didn't get out alone, so someone had to have done that and has not reported to us, because everybody I would imagine, at least in the nation now, knows we're looking for these kids, has not reported it, then that would constitute foul play, because the only people those kids are supposed to be with are their parents.
She says, do you have persons of interest? He says, we have dozens of persons of interest. I find that really interesting. Dozens. Is it a group effort? Are there many people involved? Is it a situation where they're being handed off from person to person to person? Dozens of persons of interest.
So right now, are there any persons of interest?
Oh, there's dozens of persons of interest. We have nobody specific. We have no specific suspects, no specific people. No one's been charged. We brought no charges so far.
Again, saying dozens of persons of interest takes the focus off of the parents, takes the focus off of the Wests. There's only two. There's a mom and a dad. There's not dozens of them. This is going in a completely new direction than most people have been slamming me about my direction. This is going in the direction that I have been talking about. This is going in the direction that I have alluded to, that I have been saying, that I feel happened. I feel they were lured. I feel like somebody knows something, and I feel like it's somebody that knew those children. She asks him about, is it possible that it could be human trafficking? And he said, anything's possible. I can't rule anything out at this point. But he doesn't give specifics like he was doing a few minutes ago.
That this case is part of something larger, something like human trafficking, or I know a lot of people ask me about that.
I can't rule that out. I can't rule anything out. Of course, it's possible. Anything, and until we know different, everything is still in play. So, we need specific facts to prove otherwise.
Then she asks, how certain are you that those boys are not in that house, the Aspen Avenue house? And he is like, I am absolutely 100% completely positive they're not in that house. We have looked. There's not secret rooms. There's not a basement. There's not underground tunnels. They're not buried under the cement foundation. They're not in that house.
How certain are you that the boys are not in the Aspen Avenue house? I know when you first did the interview, when you first spoke with us outside that house, that I think it was December 23rd, you told us, the canines smelled the scent of the boys inside the house. They didn't smell it leaving the house. It seems like that would imply that they're still there. And how certain are you that they're not?
Excuse me I have to smile on that. Like, I am 110% certain those boys are not in that house. I've been in there numerous times. We've searched every possible place in that house. I know people believe that there's secret rooms and there's a basement and there's false walls, and we've searched every possible nook and cranny in that house multiple times.
Another thing he mentioned about the dogs with the scent, that they did get their scent inside the house, but he makes it very clear that outside they did not find the scent. But he said that doesn't mean anything. They're not 100%, and that really doesn't mean anything that they didn't get the consent outside. So we can let that one go too as well, because people are like, why didn't the dog get the scent? Well, he made it clear that it's not necessarily that they weren't there. So.
And I am absolutely certain we've searched the backyard multiple times. We've searched underground the backyard with different technology multiple times with nothing. The dogs aren't always 100% accurate. We've had the dogs in the house. That night they alerted inside the house, but they didn't alert outside. Doesn't mean anything. We use those as tools that maybe will point us one way or the other.
Then they bring up the polygraph tests. And again, he clarifies it's only a tool. It's not admissible in court. Could it indicate someone's being deceptive? It might, but they're not. It's not admissible in court. So it really is only a tool to kind of make somebody squirrely, to try to get to see who's being deceptive versus who's being honest. And it's not going to solve the case.
People keep asking about polygraph. Polygraph is not, it's not admissible in court. Is it a tool? Sure. Can I believe at some point that maybe that you are being deceptive by the results of the test? Sure. But it's only a tool. It's only a tool to help us go in a certain direction. But right now, we don't have any of that.
And he's very clear saying, when she asks, is it possible they wandered into the desert that night? He said, if I have to bet my house on it, I'd say no, they didn't.
Possible that the boys wandered into the desert that night? I know you suspect foul play, but is that also something you're considering?
If I had to bet my house on it, I would say no, because we searched thoroughly that night. We brought in airship with infrared, no hits. Again, we searched that whole desert a week later within a 5 square mile perimeter around the house. We found nothing. It doesn't mean they're not there, but I am super confident that, I know little kids are really fast, but I know they have no stamina.
They didn't get out of the neighborhood on their own. An adult must have assisted them. They aren't in the desert. I'd bet my house on it. They're not with their parents. So that indicates foul play.
So they might take off like a shot, but they're only good for 20 or 30 yards in my experience. But not saying that can happen, but I am super confident they're not somewhere around. I truly believe they just didn't wander off in the desert that night and we haven't found them.
And he points out that little kids are really fast, but they only have so much stamina. The way that I see them move out the gate in my video that shows them going out the gate, they are fast, they are quick, they're like little thunder and lightning, gone, gone. And again, in my opinion, I believe they saw somebody on the other side of the fence that lured them out, candy, someone they knew, a puppy, something like that. They nabbed those kids and got away fast in a car. And they went, in my opinion, I believe they went the back way over the junk house with the chain link fence. That's the only way I could see them going if it wasn't pictured on the cameras from across the street or the other side. Just my opinion. And then she goes into the broken femur. I'm a little bit confused about his reply on the broken femur. Orrin, when his leg was broken, CPS became involved immediately because the hospital, the doctor called the social worker in to report this as an abusive injury. So I'm a little confused about why he talks about it as an accident, as if he didn't know how old the baby was at that time. That I'm really unsure of why he took that angle. Because clearly a 3-month-old baby, they don't even crawl yet.
But when I first met the biological mother of the two boys, she had mentioned how one of them had a broken femur. This was a couple of years ago. I know I saw it on the Attorney General's website as well, that Orrin had a broken femur, the biggest bone in the body in his leg. Did the adoptive parents in that interview, did the bone heal at that point? Does he still?
Yeah, it had been years prior. I think even prior to them adopting the kids. So that was, to the best of my knowledge, that was ruled as an accident. That there was no, I'm sure there was an investigation done by Children's Services, and they found no misconduct.
Okay. No misconduct.
They don't even crawl yet. The femur is the thigh bone, so it's impossible that that baby broke its leg on its own. So I don't know why he took that angle. He must have a reason, but it's clearly child abuse, that broken femur. And I'll flat out say that because based on my professional experience, what I do for a living, and being a mandated reporter, and what we know about that broken femur, that wasn't an accident. So I totally take the opposite view on that. And I don't know why Cheif Jon went on that road. I really don't. Maybe he has a reason, or maybe he's confused about that specific issue.
With the biological mother?
Yeah, with anybody. I believe, to the best of my knowledge, it was just ruled, an accident. That he broke his leg, he fell down somehow, and he broke his leg. However, that would be a good way to identify. That's a good identifier.
What is the surgery or the?
No, if we located a child that had a broken femur that was consistent with the injury that was sustained by the children, another way to ID the kids.
But it's not relevant in this situation because it's
no, it has nothing to do with their disappearance. No. But
he does point out it would be really good to be able to identify, because they can look back and see that scar tissue on an x-ray or on, if it was a autopsy, and see that would be a good way to identify that child, knowing the previous injury did exist and being able to see and being able to see that healed, because there would still be evidence of it on that femur that's been broken there before.
Is it possible that they're with extended family members right now? And have you done anything to pursue that possibility? Question extended family members.
Anything's possible, and we've questioned everyone around them. Again, like I say, we start with the immediate family and work our way out. So we've done our best to question anybody and everybody we think could possibly be related. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how big. It's a pretty big family. So if someone had them, I guess that would be great if they're healthy and they're alive and we can find them. That would be awesome.
And she asks again about neighbors seeing these kids, because I'm still seeing comments all over the Facebook groups and everything saying those kids never made it out of Bakersfield. That has been disputed. He is saying right now that neighbors have seen children, and he is amending that completely. So I don't know, you're going to say, well, they didn't know it was exactly Orrin and Orson. Well, at some point, neighbors saw kids. So I'm pretty sure that Cheif Jon is pretty positive that 6 children had been accounted for at that property at some point, based on what he's saying.
I remember that, again, referring to that first interview with you, you had said how none of the neighbors in in that area had seen the boys.
I think I amended that though, because we did have some neighbors that said they never had even seen kids. Now, remember, they'd only been there for 3 months, September to December when it occurred. We did find some neighbors that said they had never seen the kids. However, we did find neighbors who did confirm they had seen kids there on the property.
So that was later on. You
Yeah,
interviewed some neighbors.
that was actually shortly after. That's why I've tried to amend that multiple times. Initially, we couldn't find anybody who had seen the kids, but we did actually find other neighbors who had actually seen kids there.
So they had seen.
They'd only been there 3 months, COVID, all those things, cold weather, all that can attribute to that. You know, they had a huge backyard with a big fence. So, and you know, here in California City, you've been to the neighborhood. There's large vacant lots between the properties.
Yeah.
And he points out the same thing that I did in my second video, I believe. If you look at that property, there's huge vacant lots on each side of the property. It's COVID, so we aren't really letting our children play with others. That would be extremely irresponsible to be exposed and bring COVID home. You know, it's just irresponsible. You're not doing that in this day and age right now. And if you are, you know, especially back then in December, things have lightened up a little bit with schools going back and more precautions. But he's flat out saying to you that those children were seen in that property. So we got to let go of the whole they never made it out of Bakersfield. If you're watching this video, if you're following this case, you can't just keep going with things that have been proven untrue. If they've been proven untrue, you need to let them go. Let your ego go. You misjudged it at the time. I'm willing to do that. If something comes up that is completely opposite of what I've been feeling, saying, thinking, or mentioning, I'll go, okay, I was wrong. And you need to do that too. So everybody on the bandwagon that they were never out of Bakersfield needs to let it go. You're not going to help solve anything. Your brain isn't going to allow you to look at different angles if you're tunnel vision and focused on the wrong thing or a rumor. It's time to just look at the facts and what we do know. And what we do know, he's saying it, those kids were in California City and they were at that property. They did move out of Bakersfield. So you got to let that one go now. It's time.
The adoptive parents are considered the last people to have seen the kids. When and where was the last time anyone besides them saw Orrin and Orson?
I believe the grandmothers had seen them prior to. I don't know the exact dates, but the people that we have spoke to had seen them, other than the parents.
She asks about who was the last people besides the adopted parents that saw the children. He says the grandmothers. Then she asks about the other children, and he won't comment on that.
When did the other children in the family say that they last saw the boys?
I can't comment on any of the interviews that we've had with the other kids.
So you've interviewed the other 4 kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
She asks, are the West still cooperating with you? And have they retained an attorney? He doesn't know about the attorney, but he says, yes, they are still cooperating. She asks if the bio family is cooperating. He says, and then he says, yes, they are. So everybody's cooperating at this point with law enforcement.
And are the Wests still cooperating, Jacqueline and Trezell? Have they retained a lawyer?
Yes, they're still cooperating. I don't know if they've retained counsel or not.
Okay. So you're still in contact with them.
Yes.
I ask, when was the last time they were interviewed?
I think formally interviewed. It's been several weeks.
Are the members of the birth family cooperating as well?
Yes.
And have they retained a lawyer?
Not to my knowledge.
He personally has not interviewed them in quite some time. Now, he says other agencies might, which means the FBI most likely has talked to them. And he does point out that Ryan Dean has been spoken to by another agency more recently than he has.
And when was the last time you spoke with them or interviewed them?
I personally, the last time I spoke with the biological mother, we actually spoke. It was a conference call on the day after the boys went missing.
Okay, so it's been quite a while since you last spoke with the biological
Since I
mother.
personally, yes. Other people have been in contact with her, but I have not.
Okay.
She asked about neighbors' footage from the neighbor across the street or whatever, and he basically flat out says he can't comment on the footage. They have hours of footage, and he can't comment, so he's not going to tell us if those children were seen in that footage.
Okay. Is there video footage of that shows the boys in California City? I know the neighbor across the street had a doorbell camera. I know the neighbor to the left of the house, if you're facing the house to the left, also had a doorbell camera or like surveillance footage of the house. I know police, took that footage and analyzed it. Was there any footage that showed the two boys in?
We have hours of footage of that. I can't comment on any of those.
Okay.
Any of that.
He can't comment on the footage. They have hours of footage, and he can't comment, so he's not going to tell us if those children were seen in that footage. So that one is still a mystery as far as what specifically he's seen to prove those children were there via camera footage. But it must be a good piece of evidence, right? Because he's not talking about it.
Okay. I called initially a few months ago. I know other people have called since regarding the initial 911 call for the two boys. I believe from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, it happened just before 6 p.m., correct?
And then he tells her, no, you can't have the 911 call. We're not sharing that with you.
It happened about 5:45 p.m.
At 5:45.
Well, let me correct that. The initial call for service came in about 5:45. We were on scene. My first officer was on scene within 5 minutes or less. That's the first one. And I think within 10 minutes, I had 4 officers on scene.
Is there a reason why the department won't release the 911 call? I tried to get it and didn't receive.
No, because it's still part of the investigation. It's an ongoing investigation, so we're not going to release it.
I mean, I've received 911 calls from ongoing investigations before, but I guess
We're not going to release it at this time.
okay. So it's just because it's an ongoing investigation. That's
Correct.
the main reason.
Correct. We're keeping it.
And then she brings up the phones, what they took from the house. They took tech, they took clothes, they took blankets, they took things that would have DNA, they took all that. And then they did give back their phones, and apparently Jacqueline and Trezell now have new phones. Well, I would definitely have gotten a new phone number. I don't know if they got new phones or new phone numbers, but with people that are harassing them, I would totally get a new phone number. I know that. So I'd probably get a new phone number. Most likely they needed new phone numbers as well. And if you are a little bit unsure of what they did to your phone, did they put something in it? You might want a new phone, right? So that makes sense. Guilty or not guilty, they maybe wouldn't want to have their phone been given to the FBI and then given back to them. There could be reasons.
You did mention, I knew this, that you took the phones of the two parents just a day or two after the two boys went missing.
Actually, next day.
Yeah, it was the next day. I remember talking to them and they mentioned, the police took our phones. We can't share contact information or anything.
And he goes on to say that I'm going to keep giving these interviews because I don't want this case to be forgotten. And we want to find these boys.
What can community members do to help in this search right now? Should they be searching in Bakersfield, in California City? Where's kind of an area?
Wherever they think that we're going to turn up these kids, I'm not going to turn down. I've said it multiple times. I'm not going to turn down any help. Anything they want to do to help us locate these kids is great. But the majority of the calls that we're getting now are basically to tell us that we're not doing it right. And that takes up a lot of our time to even respond to that. I appreciate their of course, I appreciate their interest. I don't want any, that's why I keep giving these interviews. I don't want people to stop thinking about these kids, and I don't want it to become a dead issue, and we stop looking. But I would like the focus to be on finding the kids. What can you give us that we can tangibly follow up on to find these children? To call us up and criticize, we're not doing a good job, or we should be talking to someone else, or we should be doing this, or we should be doing that. It's not productive.
That's all I got for you from here. I'm Kathryn. Thank you for watching Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications so you know when I pop out a new video. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay well.